Thero and everyone. Right, let's bring our palms together then. To make veneration to the perfect one, the magnificent one, the unparalleled one, the unequaled one. Reminding ourselves of his great virtue, his wisdom, his compassion, which knows no bounds and has no limits. Reminding ourselves how he brought us all under his shelter and created us and paved for us the path that we all walk on steadfastly towards our own liberation. As we bring our palms together and make this token of veneration, let us not forget that this is more than a mere mark of obeisance. It is our opportunity to renew our pledge of allegiance to the Noble Triple Gem, reminding ourselves that the Buddha represents freedom, the Dhamma represents the truth, and the Sangha represents our practice. Let us use this opportunity to ask ourselves whether we are loyal to the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, whether we are honest to the path and we practice with integrity. With that in mind, let us take this moment to seek refuge once again in the Noble Triple Gem, observe the precepts, and begin today's proceedings. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Before we get into the depths of the Dhamma, there are one or two things that I thought would be good if I shared with you. This is for no particular reason. In fact, I had not planned on saying any of this, but just this moment, something came to mind, and I thought it would be good for all of us to be aware of this. Let's go back to the first day you came here. The very first day you arrived. Do you still remember that day? I remember. You were lost. I don't mean lost as in lost, didn't know which hole to go to. Not in that way. Not literally, but spiritually. You were lost. You didn't know what to do. In more ways than one, you didn't know what to do. Life was going on. Life had to go on. Perhaps there were times in your own lives where you wondered to yourself whether you really must go on living like this. I'm sure for more than at least a handful of you, there might have been times in your own personal lives where you wondered whether life has to go on like this. What if I could just put a stop to all this? What if all this just would come to an end? What if I just took my own life? Then I wouldn't have to put up with all of this. There may be individuals here who've had to cross that bridge at some point. Those times tested your patience. They tested your will to live. And every day felt like a struggle. Getting out of bed alone was like torture. Leaving your front door was like going out to war. And then on top of all that, you had work, family, bills to pay, so-called friends, and worst of all, so-called relations. Sometimes you wondered why they ended up being your relations. let alone the neighbors. There were days like that in your life. You did everything you knew or you thought you had to do because that's what people had taught you to do. Because you thought that at the end of all this struggle, there has to be a day where I can be free. The light of hope remained lit in your hearts somewhere, ladies and gentlemen. It was lit somewhere. Every day felt like a drudge, but you just kept on going. Sometimes maybe you did it for your sons and daughters. You did it for your children. Perhaps there are mothers and fathers in this room who, had it not been for the fact that they were mothers and fathers, perhaps today you would not be alive. Maybe you did it for your children. Even when everything felt like it was going against you, everything felt at odds with you, you had to pick up the courage and you had to do it. Perhaps you have a husband or a wife, or had a husband or a wife, who was not at all supportive of the work you're doing, and they didn't even pull their own weight. And then you had to do two people's work. There might have been many days where you just kicked yourself in the background, wondering why you got yourself into it in the first place. Life would have been really tough. Go back to that day where you were looking for answers. You were lost. You mustn't forget where you all started. Those days when the bills kept on coming, maybe they still do. But today you're able to see it just as another bill, a bill to be paid, not something that drains the life out of you. Not like something that's there to just haunt you, torment you, and take away your night's sleep. Don't forget those days, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why you came here. You came here looking for hope, or with hope you came looking for answers, you came looking for solutions to your problems. They said if you earned enough money, all problems will go away. But every day you hear of people who commit suicide. But if you look, their bank accounts have lots and lots and lots of money. So money has not given them the answers that they sought. People would have driven you down various avenues, various pathways, and people would have encouraged you to go on various pursuits, promising you that at the end of this you will find hope. There may have been couples, husbands and wives, who were in the midst of all sorts of problems. Maybe they were at each other's necks every day, every night. But they were hopeful that one day when we have a kid of our own, a child of our own, all these problems will go away. That's what people say. So perhaps this is your story. Money in the bank, a family, a car in the garage, a job that's going for you. There's a family home, but your heart still seeks happiness, still seeks contentment, still seeks fulfillment. It seems like everything else is full around you, but inside here, it's empty. Your heart is empty, but your house is full. Aren't most people like that? A full house, but an empty heart. Go into most homes today, and I'm talking about your past, before you came across the Buddha's teaching, before you came across the truths. Most of you would have had a full house. House full. heart empty. So then you came and you witnessed the Mahasangha. You witnessed the smiles on the faces of the community that have come together to walk in the path, the footsteps of the Mahasangha. You were introduced to the Dharmishta Rajagiriyans. In other words, a noble community of men, women, and children who were once lost just like you, who were once desperate just like you, who were once hopeless but hopeful at the same time, just like you, looking for a way out, looking for respite, looking for solace, who were exhausted because they went after money but no amount of money gave them happiness, who went after wealth and who went after property but none of them gave them fulfillment and contentment, who went after the accolades, who went after the titles, who went after all these things that people promise. They keep these things on the altar and say, worship it, surrender yourself to it and everything will be fine. Who had done all that, but alas, a full house but an empty heart. You came across a community of people like that. And then you stopped. You sat down, you listened to a talk. At the end of that talk, you felt there's something in this that I'd been looking for. It kind of makes sense. Still not sure, not convinced, but kind of makes sense. And more people around you nodding than you are, because it's making sense to them. And the people who are nodding vehemently, you know, are the regulars, so they understand what's going on. So you stopped, you asked them, so what do you come here for? Perhaps they would have said, wait and see. Half an hour after the sermon, they brought you the sandwiches. And you thought, that's what they meant by wait and see. But you came back the second time. And you came back a third time. And you came back a fourth time. By this point, it had become a bit of a habit. Nothing much going on Sunday morning, besides maybe a hangover from the night before. But you had enough of a willpower to get yourself out of bed, get yourself into your car, and get yourself dressed, get yourself into a car, and bring yourself here. And that willpower was your biggest blessing. It kept you going. So you came here, Swaminatha started talking to you. You came up, you worshipped, Swaminatha gave his blessings to you. He talked about his own story, his personal story of transformation. And then slowly but gradually, slowly but steadily, confidence started to build within you. A few weeks in, a few months in, a few sermons in, this became the norm. You started offering alms after the sermons. You really enjoyed that. You liked the culture. You liked the community. You liked the feel, the vibe of this place. You liked how people cared about you and how you were looked after when you arrived. There was something in the air. The ambience was just something nice about it. And people were very friendly, courteous, polite, gentle, all at the same time. And you began to like it. So you settled down. Then Sunday mornings went from being just another adventure to something that became part of your life. So you kept on coming. So much so that it had become now a fully formed habit. Sunday morning became a habit. That's good, because it is habits that always lead us to our success, not just one-off behaviors, habits. Habits lead us to our success. That's good. But don't become complacent. And don't rest on your laurels. Don't forget that the person who came here was a person who was lost once. You were here because there was a community here before you. You were certainly not the first one to arrive here. But let's not become complacent. Once again, I'm not suggesting that you are. This is just like, you know what they do with the first aid box, right? You have it ready before the accident. So this is first aid. You don't need it just now. None of you are wounded. So you don't need this right now, you don't need it just now. Just put it in the first aid box. Leave it there for when you need it later. Let's not forget where you are when you started, or where you were when you started. You were lost, you were desolate, you were desperate, looking for answers, looking for solutions. You tried every book, you tried every counseling, you tried every therapy, you'd been to the psychiatrists, you'd been to the counselors, you'd been to this, you'd been to that, you'd asked your friends, you'd asked your aunties, you'd asked your uncles, you'd asked your grandparents. No one could help you because they just couldn't understand you. That's what they all say. Those are some of the first words we hear. Swaminathan said, I've been trying to share my problem with people, but they just won't understand me. Yes, of course, that is true. Because you are nothing more than a mind. So for someone to understand you, they need to understand the mind. You are not an individual. People try to understand individuals. An individual tries to understand an individual. That's a recipe for disaster. That's why there's so much misunderstanding among people. That's why people don't get people. They just don't get people. But once you begin to understand the mind, once you begin to realize that you are a mind just as every other mind, now a mind tries to understand a mind. That's when people start to make sense. That's when behaviors start to make sense. And that's when you don't judge. How often have we heard the phrase, don't judge others? Your parents would have said it, teachers would have said it, right? Your friends would have said it, you would have told it yourself, and you would have given that same advice to others, all at the same time, judging every man, woman, and child that you meet on the street. Always judging. Being judgmental is part and parcel of who you are. It's a nice philosophy, don't judge. But we are all guilty of it. Don't forget why we all came here in the first place. Never forget that. This is one of the best pieces of advice I can give and share with all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Never forget. Once again, this is not something you need for today. I don't think anyone needs it today. But you may need it in the future. Perhaps it is by the end of this sermon. Perhaps it is tomorrow. Perhaps it is next week, or maybe in three months' time. But for when you need it, keep it in your handbag. Gents, put it in your pocket. Unless you also carry a handbag with you. Then do as you please. But here's why I say this. Listen carefully. From time to time, There may be the odd falling out with each other. I doubt you're going to fall out with Swaminathan, but even that's a possibility. Let's say in one of these sermons, I take an example. And I share an example with you and you think, he's sharing what I told him with the rest of them. This was meant to be private and personal. Not in my dreams, dear ladies and gentlemen, would I share your personal stories or your personal anecdotes with anybody. Not even my teacher asks them. He says, anything someone comes and shares with you personally, I don't ask you about it. Because that's meant to be, there's a degree of trust there. What my teacher tells me is, if you don't know how to handle that situation, if you need help to help that individual, you can always come and ask me. But I will never ask you, what did that lady come and tell you? What did that gent come and tell you? What is his personal story that he shared with you? Give me the juicy details first. No, we have far more important things to do than that. But let's say, I don't expect this will happen, but it's my job to share this with you so that you are suitably informed and you're prepared for when this might happen. Let's say one of these days, someone says something to you, someone in the audience, someone in the community, right? Someone says something to you and you don't like the sound of that. Let's say, for example, you have someone who's been coming along for some time now. And then there's someone who has started coming in more recently. But apparently they have thought that they want to do some merit work or, to usher people into the room or do whatever. And they tell you what to do and what not to do. So you're the senior. In this context, they're the junior. So you walk in because you are the senior, expecting that people will do as you suggest, rather than you do as they suggest. But then you are told what to do and what not to do. So let's say you come and take a seat somewhere in the audience and one of the juniors say, not there, no, not there, come here. No, don't sit there. There's another lady who usually comes and says, you don't sit there. Go and sit on the other side. Could happen. Could happen. I never promised you that I would make the whole world in your favor. Never promised you that. I never promised you that I would serve the whole world on a plate to you and say, as you wish, my Lord, you can have it. Never said that. I never promised you that. All I've ever promised you is, listen to the Dhamma, bear the Dhamma, practice the Dhamma, and then you will be able to face whatever as it comes. You will be ready to take it with equanimity. That's the name of the game, ladies and gentlemen. Equanimity. That is the ideal to which we must all aspire. Equanimity. No aversion, no desire. A state of equanimity. So once again, I'm not addressing a problem or a situation that has been brought to my attention. Okay? So please understand that. But as we grow as a community, I think this is something that is prudent for me to share from time to time. So this won't be the first time. Actually, well, this is the first time. But this won't be the last time. Perhaps in another few months' time, maybe in a year's time again, when the universe says, hey, say this, and whispers it in my ear, I might do so. Because in that instance, what might happen is, you might think to yourself, how dare? How? How what? How dare? How dare they? Who do they think they are and who do they think I am? That's the question I've been asking you, like from the start of these sermons, right? Who do you think you are? But at that very moment, you forget that you are just a chitta. Frankly, I like for such things to happen from time to time. I encourage that, but don't do it. Actually, let me put it this way. I like for that to happen, but I don't encourage that. So as in, don't do it, but if it happens, be glad that it did. So don't do it. Okay? Don't like tell people what to do, what not to do. As in, don't try to offend people or to test their patience. Right? That's not your job. Don't test people's patience. Don't test how much people have understood and contemplated the Dhamma. That's not your job. Your job is to do that with who? With yourself, indeed. Not with anyone else. So don't give people term tests. Although this is a school. We don't do that here. Because everyone grows at their own pace, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone takes their own time. Some are quick. Some are slow. Everyone takes their own time. You're all like different plants. Some shoot overnight. Others are like the Chinese bamboo. For 5 long years, nothing seems to be happening. The farmer keeps on watering, but there's no evidence of any growth. And then all of a sudden, in the next 3 months, it shoots up into the sky. So there are those people amongst you as well. And that's okay. We must all be accepting of that. That diversity is important. And we must be able to embrace that. But it is not our job to gauge, to assess, to evaluate, or to judge where people are on this journey and whether they have taken on the Dhamma and how much they have contemplated Dhamma and whether they are now strong enough and they have the mental, the intellectual stamina or the spiritual stamina to stomach whatever you throw at them. That's not your job. So it might be that one of these days someone might come in, a junior, let's say this gentleman only started coming 2 weeks ago. You've been coming for the last 2 years now. He said, Matya, oi, you. Come here, come here. Go and get a water for Swami Nanse. Here, lay down the carpets, lay down the carpets. These things good? They could happen. I like for when they happen, I like for them to happen to you, not to anyone else, but to you. Because that is a moment where you can test whether you have truly grounded yourself in the Dhamma or whether you're just like the bubble of the bubble gum. There's no essence. Just waiting to pop. No essence. So, if and when something like that happens, embrace the opportunity. Study yourself. Learn the Dhamma and study what? Yourself. Don't study the Dhamma. Don't waste your time studying the Dhamma. I once did that, waste of time. Don't study the Dhamma. Learn the Dhamma. Study yourself. One who studies is called a student. Become a student of yourself. Learn from the teacher, but study yourself. So in these moments, in these situations, ask yourself, hey, how did I feel in that moment? Did I feel like I was undermined? Did I have a sense of ego? Did I feel like someone talked over me? Did I feel that I deserved respect? I deserved acknowledgement? Did I feel like someone else had taken my seat? Did I feel like that was not right, that this junior wanted me, the senior, to go and do that, this or the other? Did I feel that way? Then you've not taken one modicum of the Dhamma that Swami Wahanse has been teaching you. So what must you do if that ever happens? Hold your hand like this. Okay? Hold your hand like this and bring it close to your face as fast as you can. Move this in the direction of your face as fast as you can. Don't slap yourself. Just move your hand as fast as you can in the direction of your face and see what happens. Because that is what you deserve. But worst of all, ladies and gentlemen, here's the worst thing that can happen. If such a thing might upset you, annoy you, or irritate you, here's the worst that can happen. Are you ready to hear me? Here's the worst that can happen. You deciding that you are not going to come here again. You deciding, fine. Because that is how you would have normally responded and reacted in every other situation out there. Even at the workplace, right? Even at the workplace, you tend to keep your dignity, right? Dignity. When it comes to Dhamma, there is no such thing called dignity. In Nibbāna, right, anything can be dismissed. No such thing called dignity in the arena of Nibbāna. But when we talk about the worldly existence, right, we must all treat each other with respect, dignity, and all that good stuff. So even at the workplace, perhaps you're someone who'd been looking for work, for a job for maybe months, and you were at the end of your tether, but ultimately you got yourself a job. But you would not let the boss come and talk over you or insult you. Perhaps you are that kind of individual. I don't need to be taking this from my boss. Perhaps you are someone like that. I will do whatever he or she asks me to do, for as long as it's legal, for as long as it's right, and for as long as it's respectable and worthy of someone like me to do. But what he is asking me to do right now is indignified, and I shall not bow down my head to whatever he or she says. Perhaps you are like that. And then in that instance, maybe even when you were struggling to make ends meet, perhaps you were struggling to make ends meet and put a square meal on the plate for you and your family, you still decided, that's it. You know what? I'm going to hand in my resignation and I'm going to go and find another job. If nothing comes, I will beg on the streets. That is more dignified than this. Perhaps you might have thought that way. Maybe not you, maybe someone else. I'm talking about none of you. Right? But, I'm saying that's not the worst of things. That's not the worst. Because if that were to happen, you've lost your job, you lost your income, right? And you're on the streets now, begging. That's the worst that has happened. Perhaps you can't put a roof above your head because you can't pay the bills. You'll have to sell your car, you'll have to sell your furniture, you'll have to sell your home, and you'll be on the streets begging. Maybe you might even have to give your children up for adoption because you can't feed them. That's not the worst that could happen to you. Because all that ends when you get another job. And if you never get another job, all that ends the moment you die. Right? So that's not the worst that can happen. But here's the deal. Where are you now? What, at Gateway College? That's not what I mean. You are now in the presence of the Buddha. You are now in the presence of the truth, the Dhamma. You are now in the presence of the Sangha, your teachers. When it comes to Nibbāna, ladies and gentlemen, you have no alternative. Don't forget that. You can find another job, but you can't find another Nibbāna. You can't find another Nibbāna. How many truths are there? There's only one truth. If you don't like this truth, will you go and find another one? Yes, Swami, there are 4 noble truths, so if one doesn't work, I have another 3. You know, that's not what I'm talking about. There's only one truth. There's only one truth. So if you don't like this truth, is there an alternative? Is there? No. If you don't like this Buddha, I don't like this Buddha, I don't like the way he talks. I don't like his style. I don't like his swagger. Huh? You don't like this Buddha. So you decide, I'm going to wait for the next Buddha. See what he has to say. What do you think you're going to, do you think you're going to like him? Do you think you're going to like the cards that he's going to deal to you? No, he's going to be the same. Because Buddhas are identical. At least what they preach is identical. Their style is identical. Their approach is identical. The way they analyze things is identical. The way they advise, they guide is identical. Buddhas are identical. So if you don't like this Buddha, I'm afraid there are no Buddhas to offer you. No matter how long you stay in samsara, if you don't like this Buddha, you're not going to love any Buddha for that matter. If you don't like this Dhamma, there is no other Dhamma to offer you. If you don't like this Sangha, I don't mean this monk. If you don't like this monk, then you can fill your boots, there are plenty of other monks. I mean this Sangha. Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasaka, Upasika, the fourfold Sangha. Individuals who practice the noble path. If you don't like the way they practice, if you don't like the practice, then I'm afraid there is no alternative to offer to you. So don't fall out of the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. So never let a personal fallout, never let a frown when you were expecting a smile from someone in this room, never let a word that is misplaced, never let a word that is spat out at the wrong time throw you miles away from this place. Because chances are, if you leave, it might be difficult to come back. Not because we are never welcoming, we are always welcoming. You can leave tomorrow and come back the day after. But usually, if you carry the wound with you, that's what people tend to do, right? They carry the wound. So the scars remain. That's why people are angry with people 10 years after an incident. 10 years, 20 years after an incident, this man, I remember him. Maybe, you just came to Rajagiriya, started coming to the sermon, and one day across the room you saw this person you'd seen 10 years ago. He was the one who took some money from you and never returned. And now you see this man in the room. I don't know, okay? Just saying. Or maybe, there's a girl here who gave her word to you, right, 15 years ago, right? And then she got into an affair with someone else, and then, broke your heart. You decided that, I'm never going to get married again, so you remain single. And then you come to Rajagiriya, and you see this woman with another man. Right? Maybe you see her in the audience, and you think to yourself, this woman, the audacity with which she brings her sandwiches to me. I don't have to say it, you know it. So what if that happens? You decide to yourself, that's it, I'm not coming to come to this place again. If she's going to be coming here, I'm not going to be coming here. When you bid goodbye to her, don't forget that you're also bidding goodbye to the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, the Noble Triple Chain. That's why I say, don't let any personal grudge, I know you don't hold grudges, forgive me for even using that word, any personal, disagreements on the light side, conflicts, middle, anything like that, any personal issues, right? Don't let them get in the way of you and your Nibbāna. Please remember this and remember this well, ladies and gentlemen. Please remember this well. Don't forget that in this room are full of minds who are striving to attain Nibbāna. That does not mean that they're all arahants. Okay? Don't forget that. That does not mean that this room is full of arahants. In this room are minds that have desire, aversion, and delusion. Each of these minds hold on to a self, a sense of self. And nothing hurts more than when you hurt their self. So like a lioness who fights to protect her cubs, if and when you hurt or harm or threaten their self, they might retaliate. In the same vein, I will advise that none of you must be like that. But each and every one of you must be prepared to accept that. Is the advice that I want to share with you. Be prepared to accept that. Who's the only person in this room who has to be courteous? Who is the only person in this room who has to be courteous? Who is it? You. Yes, no one else has to be courteous. No one else is obliged to be courteous to you. But you are obliged to be courteous to everyone. Who is the only one in this room who is supposed to be generous? You. Who's the only one in this room who's supposed to be and who must be polite? You. That's it, nobody else. So if you're all nodding in agreement with me, don't expect anyone else to be like that towards you. Don't expect courtesy, don't expect kindness, don't expect gentleness, don't expect politeness, don't expect any of these things. Therefore, if you receive them, don't take them for granted. Never take them for granted. Be grateful that people are prepared to be courteous to you, kind to you, generous to you, polite to you, and respectful towards you. Be grateful that people have chosen to be that way. This applies not only to people in this room, but to everyone in the whole wide world. But I can't speak to all of them, although I can speak to all of you. So let's not expect that from anyone else. It is only your duty and your obligation to be like that to every other person. Because who is here to attain Nibbāna? Do you come as a couple to attain Nibbāna? We don't do a couples package. We don't do couples packages, we don't do family packages, right? Husband, wife and child, we don't do such packages, unfortunately. We don't do married packages or maiden packages, widowed packages. No, we don't do that. We only do the individual package. So I offer Nibbāna. Actually, I don't offer Nibbāna, I'll offer the truth. Nibbāna happens within you. You know that, right? You can't come and leave a pidikara and exchange it for Nibbāna with me. Doesn't work like that. Nibbāna has to happen within you. And for Nibbāna to happen, ladies and gentlemen, the Dhamma alone cannot do that. The Dhamma is like the seed. The seed needs fertile ground to grow on. I cannot be the fertile ground to you. I'm afraid. Sorry to say that. I cannot be your fertile ground. I'm only the farmer. It's your responsibility to ensure that you cultivate or you create a fertile ground within your minds so that when the seeds of Dhamma are strewn across the room, they take root, they plant, and they grow into a great tree. That is why it is important that you don't leave this place for those reasons. Let me give you some valid reasons to leave this place. Because otherwise you might think, Swaminatha is trying to get us and create a community here and he doesn't want anyone to leave so he can grow his number of followers. Maybe he's going to start a Facebook page or something soon. And he wants his followers. Then you have not understood the first thing about me. Let me tell you some valid reasons to leave this room. Leave this room meaning, leave this program. Number one, you begin to feel that what Swaminatha is sharing with you is not the truth. This does not make sense to you because it is not the truth. So what I teach you does not make sense to you. In other words, it makes nonsense. You take this, you apply into your lab of life and you realize, no, that's not how it has happened. The truth is one, but Swaminatha keeps talking about something else and that is not the truth. This cannot be what the Buddha taught. If you feel that way, that's a perfectly valid reason for you to leave this room. Number two, there's another teacher and there are many other teachers. A teacher who you can better relate to. A teacher who can touch your heart, your soul with words. And a teacher who you can relate better to. Who you feel understands you better. Still the Buddha's teachings. But someone whose teachings you understand better. Then that's another valid reason. Because as we always say, don't have too many teachers in this game. I give you the analogy of someone going to a chef to learn how to cook. I've shared this with you in the past. If you go to multiple chefs to learn how to cook a meal, wait at least until you have learned one meal. Here's why. Say you're learning to make a curry and it takes you 3 weeks to learn the whole thing. In the first week, the first chef teaches you that you have to add salt at the beginning of making this curry. The second chef teaches you that they have to do it in the middle. And the third chef teaches you that you have to do it at the end. So you are eager to make this curry, so you don't like to stick around until the chef finishes their teaching. So in the first week you go to the first chef, he teaches you how to do what? How to salt the curry. The second week you go to the second chef, what do they teach you how to do? To salt the curry. The third week you go to the third chef, what does he teach you how to do? How to salt the curry. Now, can you eat this curry? This is called a salt curry. Because that's all you will have. But if you'd stayed on with any one of those teachers, you'd have been able to cook and eat a nice hearty meal. But you didn't do that. You went to multiple teachers, but unfortunately, you went to them at the wrong time. This can happen. Now, when you have that salty curry, which one of the three teachers is going to take responsibility? Who's going to put their hand up and say, I take responsibility for teaching this person how not to cook a curry? Who's going to take that responsibility? None of those teachers will take responsibility because you are not loyal to that teaching. You didn't stick with the teaching. So none of them can take responsibility. In the end, you end up with a curry that you cannot eat. And that would be a pity, because this is not just a curry we are talking about. What is the curry that you're learning to cook right now? It's called life, ladies and gentlemen, life. And that's the one thing you don't get a second chance with. Isn't that right? If marriage doesn't work out, Plenty of fish in the sea. If your job doesn't work out, all you need is a newspaper with all those job postings. Plenty of them. If a house doesn't work out, plenty down the street, they all got for sale signs on. Yeah? That's the thing. If your kid doesn't work out, you have another one. Just have another one. But if life doesn't work out, well, you have to wait until you die to have another one. But the thing is, you can't remember any of the lessons from your previous one. Unlike the previous examples. Unlike the previous examples. Unlike the previous examples, let's not forget that. When you make your second child, you have all the lessons, mothers, agreed? Agreed? When you have your second child, you have all the lessons you have learned from the first one. When you have a second husband, you have stop making me laugh. You have all the lessons you have learned from the previous one. When you take a second job, they call it work experience, right? Yeah. So they have work experience, child experience, spouse experience. You have all these kinds of experience. But what is your life experience? How many times do you turn 25? Once. So what if you make the wrong decision on your 25th birthday? Here's what will happen on your 26th. You regret. That's it. You don't get another 25th. And I'm sure there are plenty of people here who regret their 25th. Because you didn't spend it the way you wanted it. But now that's gone. You can live another year and do your 26th, but that is your 26th, ladies and gentlemen, not your 25th. This is the thing. So this curry that we are talking about, this is the curry of life. So this teaching, this advice is more valid than it is with anything else. When it comes to life, don't gamble with it. Money, if you want, you gamble with it, you can earn it more. You can earn it back. But don't gamble with life. You don't get a second chance at it. And here's the worst part. For every action you take, for every decision you make, the consequences are yours. Both rewards and consequences are yours and yours alone. No one else can share in with you. No one else can take 50% of your, if you do business, two people get into a business, 50-50. You take half of the shares, the other guy takes half of the shares. If the business goes bankrupt, then only half of the loss is yours, the other half is the other person's, right? What about life? What about your karma? Can someone else step in and say, well, I'm your mother. I'm your mother, Putta. Let me take half of your bad karma. You suffer for the rest of it. Can they do that? No. So mother might ask Swaminathan, but it seems like that at home. Right? When my little one does all sorts of naughty mischief and things, and he gets into trouble, I'm the one who has to suffer for that. Not only him, I also suffer. That's not because of his karma. That's because of your own karma. That's not because of his karma. That's not because of her karma. The daughter ran away, she got pregnant, and now she has to suffer because the husband also fled, and now she is left alone with the child. So what does the daughter do? She comes back. She comes back home. So now the mother says, see, these children, very stubborn, didn't listen to anything I told her, and she ran away, and she got into trouble. Now because of her bad karma, I also have to suffer. Yes or no? No. No. Don't fool yourself. That is not because of her karma. She's suffering because of her karma. You're suffering because of your karma. This is the only business in which you can't sell shares. You can't sell shares here. Your rewards are yours alone. It's a really good business though. Because 100% of your investment is 100% of your own gain. No one else can come and take any of your good karma. No one else can enjoy the rewards of your good karma. No one else can do that. This is a sole proprietor business. Sole proprietor. But likewise, the other side of the coin is also true. Whatever bad deed you do, ladies and gentlemen, like we talked, I think towards the end of last week, we talked about how karma works and how necessity is the mother of invention, and therefore necessity is what creates your karma. Do you remember that from last week? Good. So anyway, long story short, what I really wanted to convey to you was, don't shoot yourselves in the foot. Don't forget why you came here in the first place. See, when you came here, there were plenty of people who were not friends with you, who were angry with you, annoyed with you, upset with you, who were in debt to you, and were not prepared to pay up their debts, who were angry with you, who had insulted you, right? And you still came here looking for answers to problems because you had problems of the heart. Not heart problems, but problems of the heart, meaning problems of the mind. So now that you have come here, and someone says something to irritate you, annoy you, bug you, bother you, don't give up this place and run away. By this place, I don't mean this place. I don't mean these four walls and the roof above your head. I mean the truth. I mean the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. I believe that most of you, myself included, it is when I came across this teaching, I realized what it meant to be a Buddhist. Until then, I was just a Buddhist for the namesake. I was a Buddhist because my parents told me I was one. That is what Buddhism meant to me. Just something I had to be. It was part of my identity. But now I realize that Buddhism is where you lose your identity. Buddhism is not a Buddhist who claims that that is their identity is no Buddhist at all. Don't you think so? A Buddhist who claims that that is part of their identity is no Buddhist at all. Because to be Buddhist is to lose one's identity, isn't it? To lose one's self. So please bear that in mind. And please take it in good faith, in the spirit in which I intend to share it with you. And once again, I emphasize, this is not that I've heard on the grapevine or someone's comment, because people don't tell me such things anyway. And I'm glad, let's keep it that way, okay? I like once again, I'm putting this in very, very carefully, very thoughtfully, as a way of showing respect to what you do. Okay? So take it in that vein. I appreciate, so please don't take this the wrong way, I appreciate the distance that you maintain with your teacher, with the Swaminathan. Please don't take this the wrong way. Please don't take this the wrong way. Do you understand what I mean? I will elaborate just so I'm sure that you have not taken this the wrong way. You have never, to this day, come and shared with me, let's say there are minor misunderstandings. Today you have a misunderstanding, by next week it's all gone. That's typically how human beings are. Right? It's just until the end of the day, that's it. And then things are, it's just water under the bridge, right? To this day, you have never come to me and said, Swaminathan, that woman, that one that comes from this place, she's always bugging me, Swaminathan. And whenever I come to the alms giving and I stand, she pushes me away and she gets in the way, and she's the one who always wants to offer first. Can you talk to her, Swaminathan? You have never done that. And I respect that. I respect your maturity. I respect the gracefulness with which you handle your teacher. By teacher, I mean whoever takes this seat. Not me, personally. By whoever that takes this seat. Because you understand that this is the source of the Dhamma. This is the source of the Dhamma that helps you to attain Nibbāna. And I respect that, basically. That is highly appreciative. And long may that continue. Whoever takes this seat, whether that is Guru Handro, me Handro, some other Handro, doesn't matter. Even if it's a layman. Let's say one of these days, there's an anagami individual who we decide is suitable to come and sit down and do the sermon. He's not a monk. But if you have accepted in your mind that this is my teacher, at least for the day, at that point you need to understand, okay, there's a certain way in which I need to have that relationship with my teacher. So all problems that you might go and share with your husband or your wife at home, you don't come and share with Swaminathan. So you have never to this day badmouthed anyone with me, and I honor that. Well done. That is what makes you dharmishta. I really appreciate that. Truly. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate that, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, no, even in my lay life, I didn't like to hang around people who were always bickering about each other. Forgive me for using this word as a monk, I hated that. I'm not allowed to hate anything. I hated, past tense. I hated that. I only like to hang around with people who, despite their differences, tolerated each other. That I'm okay with. I'm not suggesting that we must all think alike, do alike, speak alike. No. You need not be identical twins. You need not be like that. Your diversity is perfectly fine. Differences in your opinion is perfectly fine. Some of you may not agree with absolutely everything Swaminathan shares with you, and that's perfectly fine. But let's say 50% of what Swaminathan teaches you, you're happy with, and that's why you keep coming to the sermons. That's okay. There's someone else who's happy with 60%, 10% more than what you agree with. They come and one of these days share, Swaminathan said something about this today. I really liked what he said. You don't agree with that. You must be okay with them bearing that. You must be okay with that. Tolerance is a virtue. If you can't tolerate differences, then how do you think people tolerate you? Isn't it? Don't you know people tolerate you all the time? Ask your better half. And by the way, better half is always the other one, okay? Better half is not always the wife. Or better half is the one who comes to Rajagiriya. Better half is always the other one. Why are they better? Because they tolerate you. That's why they're better. She's the better half and he's the better half. Ask the other person how much they tolerate you. And that's how you make a marriage last. It always requires constant maintenance. You know this. We've talked about this in the past. But even in a community, I don't suggest that you are 100% in agreement about everything with each other. And that's perfectly okay. That's perfectly okay. A work of art is not 100% the same color. It's diversity that makes it art. In one part of the picture you have red, in the other part of the picture you have blue, another part of the picture you have green. Right? All these colors is what makes it beautiful. Look at this flower arrangement, for instance. That diversity makes it interesting. It makes it beautiful. You've done it like that, intentionally. Look at that flower arrangement. So that I expect from the people that I associate with. Even in my lay life, as I said, I just could not get along with people. Even if I walked into a group, let's say we were up to doing something no good. I can't think of any examples, but let's say I was going into a group of people. Let's say I had to work with some thieves. Right? Let's say I had to spend the day with some thieves, and we were going to steal something from someone. If they were bickering about each other, always bad-mouthing each other, I couldn't stand that. I don't mind us stealing something. I just can't stand people always at each other's necks. Because without that harmony, you can't exist. You can't survive. The Sangha is all about that. That getting along, that coming together, that conforming to the same ideals, but taking different approaches, and that's okay. So, have you taken the gist of what I have just shared with you? So please don't leave this room for the wrong reasons. And there are perfectly valid reasons to look for other pastures, and that's okay. So if someone comes and says, there's another Swaminathan who does another sermon in this part of Colombo or wherever, and it's far better than these sermons, you really must come and listen to one of those. It's perfectly fine if you wanted to go and try that out. And actually, if you go there and it really makes sense to you, and it really does what you want out of a sermon, then we give our blessings. Please continue, and you can get to those sermons and do your Nibbana. It's perfectly fine. Let's say someone leaves this place and they say, this is not working out for me. You mustn't hate that person for saying that. Someone comes to you and says that Swaminathan is not good. I don't like this Swaminathan. He smells. And look at the way he takes our food. When we give him alms, he takes all of it. Isn't he supposed to take only a little bit? And they start bad-mouthing with you about Swaminathan. Someone doesn't like Swaminathan. Maybe someone I hated in my previous life, and now they're hating me back for it. What can you do? Maybe I was a master and they were the slave, and I just kept whacking that person, and now it's time for them to whack me back verbally. What can you do about that? So don't hate them for that. Don't hate them. Don't hate my haters, is what I'm asking you to do. Do you understand me? Don't hate my haters. And don't fall in love with those who love me either. Be equanimous. Love and hate are both two sides of the same coin. You are not entitled to that coin. As students of Nibbāna, you are not entitled to that coin. Neither love nor hate should be part of your spiritual ecosystem. Get rid of it. Because that is not a currency in which you must deal going forward. Equanimity should be your approach to all things. Strive for that, ladies and gentlemen, strive for that. Wherever you got in trouble, it was because you either loved someone or something or hated someone or something. In both these instances, you got yourself in trouble. Whenever there is love, there's always going to be fear. Fear of loss. There's always going to be threat. Ask yourself, get into the lab of your life and ask yourself whether this is not true. Think of anything you love, and the second thought that will come to your mind is fear. What if? What if? What if? What if? What if? So many what ifs in your life. Do a what if analysis for those who are business minded. Every what if you have to do is something that you have a love for, a desire for, a wanting for. And then the other side, you have hate. You have anger, you have aversion. Against something you are worried about. That is your loss. When you're at a loss, you feel aversion. When you feel like something that you care about has been taken away from you, or someone is out there to take it away from you, now you love the thing, but you hate the person or the thing that's about to take it away from you. That's why you can't never be free of these two things if you want to hold on to that coin. So don't subscribe to that currency. This is the currency of ignorance. This is the currency of ignorance. Take $1 of the currency of ignorance and look on either side. Normally you see heads and tails. Here you will see love and hate. Every coin of ignorance you pick up and you have a look on either side, there will be love and hate on either side. You love something, you hate something. That's why don't subscribe to this currency. What did the Buddha love? What did the Buddha hate? Nothing. What does an Arahant love then? What does an Arahant hate? Nothing. When Aṅgulimāla Thero, when he was a murderer, even the king at the time was on the hunt for him. He had sent his best soldiers to find him and have him done with, but none could survive because he was very good at what he did. Killing. Later on, after he became the great Arahant, there was not another soul who was as harmless as he was. Not another soul. That's why even today, as a mother is about to give birth, mothers in this room will bear evidence to this. What is the pirit they chant? Aṅgulimāla pirita. In the Aṅgulimāla pirita, the essence of it is, it talks about harmlessness, innocence, metta, loving kindness, compassion. You might wonder, where were all those things in Aṅgulimāla? Yes, there weren't in Aṅgulimāla the murderer, but in Aṅgulimāla the Arahant, he was an epitome of it. But people who had judged him, when he was a murderer, as a murderer, they remained their judgment. They retained their judgment. So even after he had come into robes and they saw him going on alms food on the street, what did they do? They hurled rocks at him. Often he would go on alms round and return to the monastery wounded. He would often return wounded. Wounds bleeding from his head, shoulders, feet, and other parts of the body. The only reason they wouldn't murder him was because he was in a robe. People feared to touch or harm in that way a monk, because they recognized that this is the robe of the Buddha. And the king at the time, he was very protective of the Mahasangha. So if there was any threat to a monk's life, then the king would put himself forward and said, if you touch him, I'm going to do the same to you. That was the rule back then. So monks were not treated as they are today in some senses. But you could say by the same vein, well, monks back in the day, their conduct was very different. But hey, we're not here to judge it here. But he would often return from his alms round wounded. So as an Arahant, there were people who loved him and there were people who hated him. Now if you saw someone hurling rocks at the great Arahant Aṅgulimāla, right? Imagine you are one of the observers, you are a bystander, and you see people hurling rocks at Aṅgulimāla Thero, the Arahant. Can you hate that man? Are you allowed to? Are you entitled to? You can't hate the person who hates the Arahant. That's why I say, don't hate my haters. That's not me saying I'm the Anarahant, okay? Just saying. Today, tomorrow, day after, whenever. Don't hate those who hate me. Because I don't hate them back. So you are not entitled to hate them back. I don't hate them back. If you hate those who hate me, then you are their students, not mine. Because I don't teach hate. Do I? No. I don't teach you how to hate. I don't prescribe hate. I don't condone hate. I don't teach hate. Who's the one who teaches hate? Those who hate me. So then if you hate, whose students are you? Cannot be my students. Then you are their students. My teaching is this: don't hate those who hate me. Take pity. Take pity upon those who hate others, for they do not know that they are only hating themselves. As Jesus once said, judge and you shall be judged. I can teach you how that works. To Buddhist doctrine. How when you judge another, you are the one who ends up being judged. There are many angles from which you can look at the same doctrine, the same philosophy. If you look at it through the Holy Quran, you will see another exposition of the same teaching. If you look at it through the Holy Bible, you will see another exposition of the same teaching, a different discourse, but teaches the same truths. How many truths are there? One. There's only one truth. Many teachers, one truth. The other day, one of our monks came and asked me, Swami answered, how does this whole thing work? He actually asked me, why do they say that if you judge, you will be judged? So I gave this example. Actually, it was more of an analogy than an example. I think you will understand it the same. Where do you normally see judgments being made? Where is it legitimate to make a judgment? At the courts, yes. So when a judge passes judgment, or the jury makes a judgment, the jury makes a call, right? You have I can't remember what they call them now. Who's the person who has been accused? The accusee? The accused? The accusee. The defender. Okay. The defendant. Defendant. Thank you. I've never been to a court. So you have the defendant who's defending their case, right? Hence you call them the defendant. Fair enough, right? Now let's assume that this man did actually commit a crime. Let's assume that he's actually guilty. No, that will be too far ahead. Let's say in the past, so say 3 weeks ago, he had committed a crime. Theft. Okay? Theft. Now, the court is trialing this case 3 weeks later. And the judge passes a judgment. The judge says you are guilty. And they put this, let's say they have now sentenced this man to death. Just for argument's sake. Just for argument's sake, let's say we have the ruling is that this man is sentenced to death or life imprisonment. Okay, so they've been given the life sentence. When is this verdict imposed on the individual? Now, 3 weeks on from when the sin was or the crime was committed, right? So now the judgment has been given not to the same person that committed the sin. Right? Because the individual who committed the crime, he passed away 3 weeks ago. Because there are only chittas, no individuals who last over a period of time. Are you following this train of thought? Yeah, so a man commits a crime. 3 weeks later, they bring his case to the courts, and now he's being trialed, and the judge gives his verdict. He says, you are guilty of theft, and you shall be imprisoned for life. So when is this sentence given? 3 weeks on from the day that the crime was committed. So you now, with your understanding of the truth, answer this question for me. Are they charging the guilty or the innocent? I can't say this because then they'll try me for contempt of court. I can't say this on camera. I'm just kidding. I know they'll understand. They'll understand and they'll wonder, oh God, how come I never got to hear any of this before? So the judge or the jury or whoever, they are passing this judgment to an individual. Is this individual guilty or innocent of the said crime? Innocent. Why do you say they're innocent? Because it was committed 3 weeks ago, or 3 days ago, or 3 hours ago. Okay, carry on. Or 3 minutes ago, or 3 seconds ago, or 3 chittas ago. But now they're given a sentence. Which chitta is given the sentence? This chitta is given the sentence. So which chitta gets sent to prison? This chitta or the next chitta, chittas which are innocent, are imprisoned. See, conventionally, these things make a lot of sense. That's why they say, we have no right to judge. I mean, I have a lot of respect for people who make the rules, who enforce the rules, who enact the rules, and do all that. But at the same time, I feel for them. I have a lot of pity, because unbeknown to them, they have taken on the role of God. They have taken on the role of karma and vipaka. And unbeknown to them, they're actually accumulating karma by, quote unquote, imprisoning innocent people. Because the person that you send to prison is actually a person who is harmless. It's a chitta. That chitta has committed no crime. You can hold a man by their arm. A man who is angry, a man who commits a crime, you can hold him by their arm, and by the time you pull him into his cell, put him there and lock the cell, you have now enforced or imposed a punishment to an innocent chitta. Because all there is presence, ladies and gentlemen, only presence. So now when you give judgment, when you make judgment upon someone, when you make a judgment and say you are guilty, actually that judgment is passed to someone who is perfectly innocent. But here's what happens. Here's the other half of this story. When you make that judgment, the criminal is a concept. The criminal is a concept, is an embodiment. So when a judge or the jury decides that someone is the criminal or someone is guilty, that criminal, or let's say you are a thief, when you claim that someone's a thief, when you judge that someone's a thief, that thief is initially created in your own mind before you can say that someone's a thief. Let's go through that one more time. So, here's how it works. You wanted the black pen, right? Yes. 3 weeks ago, a crime was committed. 3 weeks ago, the crime of theft was committed. 3 weeks ago, there was a chitta whose intention it was to steal. Had judgment been passed on that day towards that chitta, that would have been a perfectly valid judgment. Because there are no such things called thieves. There are chittas that thieve. A thief is not an individual. A thief is not an individual, ladies and gentlemen. Neither is a murderer, neither is a philanderer, neither is a burglar, neither is a rapist, neither is a womanizer. None of these are individuals. They are merely chittas. So is Aṅgulimāla a murderer or an arahant? Which one? Exactly. What changed? Chittas changed. In one chitta, there was intention to murder. This is Aṅgulimāla now. In the next chitta that had heard the Dhamma, had understood the Dhamma, now there is intention to heal, to cure, to mend minds and heal hearts, to heal the wounded souls, to spread the Dhamma, to help people liberate themselves. That's the other chitta. But when people hurled rocks at Aṅgulimāla, they did that after he'd become the arahant. And as he went around walking on arms, people used to look at him and go, "Murderer," they said. But who were they pointing their words at? The arahant. Had they said that when he was the murderer, that would have been a valid accusation, and a legitimate valid accusation. That judgment would have been okay, but it's not now. It's no longer valid. Nothing could be further from the truth, because here we are talking of an arahant. This chitta is not the same as that chitta. They are chittas for all intents and purposes, but the intention is karma, right? Now, answer this question for me. For those who understand something about karma and vipaka, let's imagine there's a book somewhere on which all your good deeds and bad deeds are written. Right? But it's there by the gates of heaven. Okay? They write all your good deeds and bad deeds. So when you walk up there, next, they ask for your name, they check the book, and they give you the word. So let's say that's there. What do you think that book takes into account? You as an individual, or these chittas? Chittas. So in that book will be a log. Essentially, that's what it is. It will be a log of each of your chittas. So here it will be give alms. Here it will be help the old man across the street. Here will be kick the dog. Here will be steal. So each one will yield vipaka. Make sense? This is a log of your existence. Your chittas with intention is a log of your existence. Simple as that. That's why the Buddha says, Chetanaham bhikkhave kamang vada. Chetana is your intention, your volition. With what volition each chitta arises, that is your karma. In other words, that is the entry that is made in your book of good and bad, based on which verdict will be given to you. Does that all make sense to you? Right, now let's go back to the courtroom. 3 weeks ago, this man, he committed a crime. Theft. 3 weeks ago, there was a chitta. Let's say that chitta. 3 weeks ago, that chitta, there was an intention in that chitta to snatch someone's handbag. There was intention there. Had the verdict been given at that point, the verdict of thief would have been valid. But times moved on. Many things have happened since then. This man is actually now regretting his actions. Or one of the worst things to do is to punish a man who regrets. it's bad on the one who enforces the punishment. But hey, this is how the world works. Because someone who is remorseful of their bad or evil actions is actually a bad man or a good man? What do you think? As a good man. That's a good man. So if you're not careful and you punish someone who is remorseful, who regrets their bad actions, their ill actions, now who's the evil one there? I'm not going to say a word. I'll let you decide. See, now this judge, 3 weeks on from the incident, gives judgment that you are a murderer or you are a thief. And what's worst is, they now put them in prison. Fair enough, he might even take into account the good deeds that he might have done since. Right? Perhaps he went and returned the handbag and say, I'm sorry. All of that, yes, of course, gets taken into account when they come up with the sentencing. But nonetheless, let's just say the final decision is to put him in prison. But you're putting into prison someone who's good. At least they're not thieving at that time. They're not stealing at that time. So the concept of thief is now not in here anymore. That's not in here anymore. Where is the concept of thief now? It's up here. See, you're judging now. Therefore, you shall be judged. Because to judge, you must first judge within yourself. Such judgment should first happen within yourself. And then, actually, when you judge someone, all you're doing is verbally expressing the judgment that you have already done in your own mind. It's just a verbal expression. Your judgment of someone, ladies and gentlemen, has no effect on the other person at all. It has no bearing on the other person. You say someone's ugly. Does that make them ugly? You say someone's pretty. Does that make them pretty? You say someone's bad. Does that make them bad? Your opinion of someone else has no effect on them. Because it is only their actions that determine what happens to them, not yours. That's how the world works. You reap what you sow. So, do you see the danger here? So when you judge, you are passing judgment on the innocent. Because whether you say that's a murderer, a thief, a philanderer, a womanizer, whoever, they're not committing that sin now. Right now, it's just chittas that are taken in the going-ons in the courtroom. That's all that's going on. Can I ask you a question? If your grandfather committed a crime, would they put you or your father in prison for that? Are you sure? Your grandfather commits a crime, would they put you or your father in prison for that? What about your son? Your grandson? No? Sure? Okay then. Commits a crime. This chitta commits a crime. That's the grandfather. Father, son, grandson. Now the grandson's in the courtroom. Life in prison. Who have they just put in prison? The grandson. Who committed the crime? The grandfather. See? Various levels of convention. Now they're all just a bunch of conventions. See, conventionally, they would never put you in prison for something that your grandfather's committed, right? In that regard, the law is fine. That seems okay. But here, for someone who has committed a sin, a crime, several days ago, several weeks ago, several months ago, maybe sometimes even decades ago, sometimes, maybe, let's say there's a priest or a monk who, when they were in their lay life, committed a crime. These are not impossibilities I speak of, right? Maybe they'd committed a crime. Say they were a child molester, or they were a rapist. See, every time I say that word, it's wrong. There's no such thing called a rapist or a child molester. All there are chittas. So couldn't there have been a chitta that committed a crime, or a sin for that matter, and no sooner than had it been committed, they realized that it was wrong, found a teacher, whether in the Dhamma or not, and the teacher then taught them the errors of their ways, and they corrected themselves, and they made a resolve, I shall never act in such sinful ways hereon. I'll be an honorable man from here on. And I will embrace the divine. I will offer myself to God. I will be holy, I'll be noble from here on. And then they conduct themselves in a very good and gentle manner. Is it not possible, unless they had they had killed their mother or father or an arahant, and thereby committing one of the heinous sins, right? Unless they had done one of those, could that person not go on to become a sotapanna? Now let's say 20 years on, right? The authorities, they catch up on this individual. Now he's a priest somewhere. They take him to the courts, trial him, and he's guilty. Who's guilty? That's the thing. Who's guilty? He's guilty. Actually, he's not guilty. He is a sotapanna. Perhaps even a sakruddhagami, maybe even an anagami person. A non-returner. They cannot come back into the sensual world, even if they wanted to. They don't want to. But they couldn't, even if they wanted to. Now this man gets put into prison. Who's made the decision about that? The judge has. See, that's what happens when you play God's game. None of us are qualified to play God. Truth be told, it is only an arahant who deserves to be sat there. Only an arahant who understands minds. That is why we always get it wrong when we judge someone. Because our judgments are always based on a history. Whenever you judge someone, whether you think someone is good or bad, think about me for a second, am I good or bad? What are you basing that on? The past. How do you know what I'm going to do next? You don't. In fact, how can you know what I'm thinking about right now? You can't. So what you are basing that judgment is on what you know about me from the past, or at least what you know about me from the past, maybe not even what I actually am or what I was. It's based on your small little narrow interpretation, understanding, perception of who you think I was in the past. Based on that, you think that I am good or I am bad. Whenever you make that judgment, now let's say you decide that I am good, Swaminathan is good. When you make that judgment, what might you be inclined to do? If you think that I am a good Swaminathan, what might you be inclined to do? You might decide to offer alms, right? Get down on your knees and worship, right? Offer pirikara, right? All sorts of things you might be willing to do, right? So when you do such things, where does that goodness happen? In you, right? Where do those merits occur? In you. Let's assume that you think that I'm good and you're making your prayers to me. Right? You're wishing me well. Where is it all going on? In you. So that wellness is born where? In you. So where does goodness happen now? In you. See, because you have judged goodness happens within you. Judge and you shall be judged. Now assume that you decide that you judge me as an evil person. You think I've got a double game going on. Let's assume. I'm not the same person that I'm here while I'm here. Maybe you've heard from someone or you think up yourself, you suspect something, whatever, and you start thinking this Swaminatha is, he's a double game person. This is not the same person that he is at the monastery, right? Something or the other. And now you start thinking that he doesn't deserve our respect. He doesn't deserve pirikara. We don't like him. So this dislike, this anger, maybe even resentment, where do they occur? Here or there? In your mind. So now anger has begun to occur in your mind. Resentment has begun to occur in your mind. Hatred has begun to occur in your mind. Who do you hate? Me. Where is hate occurring? Over there. So you see, the moment you decide that I am bad, where does badness occur? In you. Judge and you shall be judged. There's no escape. Judge and you shall be judged, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to judge someone, at least judge that they are good. But then again, you could be wrong. But here's what we always suggest you do. You can assume that someone is good, but that doesn't mean you should send your daughter to spend the night with them. Okay? So, trust in God, but tie your camel. Right? Otherwise, by the time you wake up in the morning, the camel's going to be gone. Trust in God, yes. In other words, think for your own benefit that people are good. Not because they're necessarily good. Is what I'm trying to get across to you. Because you can't help judgment happening within you. Not until you eradicate jati. Or at least until you have seen the truths. Once you begin to realize that these are all chittas and there are no individuals to be judged. You get that? Once you begin to realize that there are only chittas and there cannot be good or bad individuals, then your judgments become invalid. So then you give up this whole judgment nonsense. And you just accept chittas for what they are. And because you can't see a chitta, you then become equanimous. So no one's either good or bad. People are neither good nor bad. Because there are no people to be either good or bad. Then there are only chittas. So then your role is simply that of either God or goodness, which is to heal, to support, to help. If they are good, help them become better. If they are bad, help them become good. That's what your job is to do. That is why you have been placed on this earth. Now, what do Christians believe? Jesus is God's Son. To do what? To save mankind from their sins. What is your job? What is your job then? Don't they say that we are all God's children? Huh? So why do you think God might expect one job from one of his sons and something else from the rest? If you ask me, I'm also one of God's children. So I'm doing what he wants me to do. I'm helping people free them from their sins. Sabba papasa akarana. But sin happens within you for as long as jati happens within you. You can't help it. It's almost involuntary that sin occurs within you. Because karma happens within you. You can't help it. So, it's one thing to pray at the altar and be grateful and, to God and to pray and all that. And that's good. But why don't we go an extra mile? Because we can. For the Christians, Catholics, whoever's listening to these talks, I invite you. It's one thing to go to church and pray to the Father, the Holy Spirit and the Son. It's one thing to do that, but how about you try and become some of that? In spirit. I'm not suggesting that you can become God or you can become Jesus, but why can't you be like them? Join the army. Join his army. Why can't you help people free themselves from their sins? See, I can talk about this from either angle. Either as a Buddhist or as a Christian. I can talk about it from multiple angles. Because it's only one truth. Just different teachers. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Think about it. You have been blessed with intellect. You have been blessed with a curious heart. Right? And a heart that can care. Caring is part and parcel of you, of who you are. You care about someone, don't you? You at least care about your kitten at home, if no one else. If you can't care about anyone, you at least care about your pet dog at home. Right? You care about someone, don't you? So you have the capacity to care, don't you? Exactly. You have the capacity to care. And that's a gift. The capacity to care is a gift. Make use of that gift. Make use of that gift by not judging people in the first instance. That's why it is not just these people who need to hear the Dhamma. So do they. Because otherwise, here's what happens. They judge. And as a consequence of that, they are judged. See, just imagine, there's a Swamin Wahanse, right? As I'm entitled to use such an example. So let's say there's a Swamin Wahanse who committed a crime many years ago. And then later on, right, let's say he fled into the thick of the forest. Right? He was in hiding. And then there he met a monk, right, who was a monastic in the forest, and he met a monk, he listened to the Dhamma, and he becomes a Sotapanna. Then he sits by his side, he attends to the monk, and he does all these chores for him, and later on he practices the path, and he becomes an anagami individual. Later on, word gets out that this man is in the forest. Now what do the authorities do? They come and they put him in cuffs and take him, and then they trial him in court. Now the judge comes into the court. It's a bad day for the judge. It's a bad day for the judge. Because he has to follow the rules of the book. He doesn't make the rules. He ensures that the rules are followed. What does the rule say? What does the law say? If they have committed a crime, does the law say, check which chitta committed the crime? Law students, people who are in the law, you know what I'm talking about. Does it say, check which chitta has committed the crime in the book? No, because that book deals with conventions. It deals with conventions, but what actually works in the world are not conventions, ladies and gentlemen. What actually goes on in the world are not conventions. What actually goes on in the world are absolutes. But we can think to ourselves that conventions are really what's going on. Who does this pen belong to? That's the thing. There are two answers to this. Conventionally, either, I don't know, maybe the school or the monastery, I don't know. But the absolute answer is, it has no owner. If it had an owner, then only the owner should be able to write with it, right? It should only work in the hands of the owner. But does it distinguish between one hand or the other? No, it writes no matter who writes. As long as the action of writing is done and there's ink in this, it works. So in absolute reality terms, it has no owner. So the judge comes into the court. Now it's his turn to take the gavel and pass his verdict. And he says, based on this, based on the crime that this gentleman has committed, on this particular day, at this particular time, I sentence him to a lifetime in prison. What they have just done is put an anagami individual into prison. Life doesn't seem fair, does it? That's what happens when you live by conventions. We think we make the law. No, we don't make the law. There's a universal law we can only understand, we can only try to understand. The moment we start making our own little laws, ladies and gentlemen, I say little not out of contempt, but it's little in comparison to the universal law. When we start making our own laws, if those laws don't conform to the universal laws, then every decision we make based on those laws, we will have to suffer the consequences of that. That is why I say, and I repeat myself, it is not just they who must hear these teachings, so must they. I don't see how someone who has heard the Dhamma, who has listened to the Dhamma and understood the Dhamma, could henceforth carry out this job, frankly. I don't see how that could be done. Parents in the house, teachers in the house, I urge you to consider this when you impose punishment to your children, to your students. Please think carefully, because if you judge, you shall be judged. I hope you've given up beating your children. Maybe that's a thing of the past, hopefully. I hope. It's not worth beating your children, not worth on your sake, I say. From your perspective, it's not worth it. But convention will say that is how you have to bring your children up. If you have to beat them, beat them. Anything short of killing them is okay, right? As long as you don't beat the life out of them, anything is okay, right? Apparently. But imagine, there are still, in this day and age even, there are fathers, mothers, sometimes, they find out that the child has done something bad and they just give a slap across the face. Sometimes the child is thrown meters away and now that child actually just came up to the mother and confessed. Is confession a bad thing or a good thing? It's a good thing. So who have you just slapped? Think about it. I can't change the world, but I can change the world for you. So please think carefully, long and hard about these things, ladies and gentlemen, and transform your lives so that you don't end up doing things that you regret later on. It's one thing to bring children into this world, but don't commit sins on their behalf. You want me to repeat that? It's one thing to bring children into this world, but don't commit sins on their behalf. They will not be paying the price for your sins. You will. And then it wouldn't matter whether you are the mother or the father, because yet again, they are also conventions. So the child has just come to you and they have begun to confess. Appachi, I just come to say that I did something wrong, I shouldn't have done. And they're trying to get the words out of them. And you okay, tell me, what did you do? What did you do? I'm sure you must have done something really bad. Tell me. Now you're angry because you just had a long day at work. Right? Your boss is just, berating you and has given you the real, and now you're furious. So this is a fantastic opportunity. Right? To vent your anger. That's why the dog gets a kick on your way back home, right? So now this little puppy, your dog, your son. Actually, what does that make you? This little boy has come up to you and is trying to confess to you. And then the moment that he spurts out what he or she has done, if you then give him a good whacking, you have just punished a mind that was doing a merit deed. something good, something wholesome. That's why you have to be very careful when you are dealing with people who are regretful, remorseful about their past actions. Be very, very, very careful. Because in front of you is not the sinner. They are trying to become a saint. They are trying to become a saint. This is the saint in the making. A saint in the making. But when you don't understand this, if you have no understanding of this, if you are ignorant to these truths, ladies and gentlemen, what do? You punish the child. Teachers, be very careful about this. Perhaps the guidelines, teachers' guidelines will say you've got to punish if they have done something wrong. But be mindful that you are punishing not the sinner. Because the child who's done the wrongdoing is not the child who's in front of you right now. That's a different chitta. Maybe the child had just done the Buddha Puja. I'd offered some flowers at the altar, or maybe swept the classroom, and it is now the time for you to talk to the child. And the child comes to you, and now he's in his really good spirits and very positive, very, very, very virtuous, very wholesome, right? And you talk to them, and then you give them punishment. So you'll ask me, Swaminathan, so what am I supposed to do then? You'll ask me. You have this question now, right? So Swaminathan sir, don't leave us like this. We have to live our lives now, Swaminathan sir. See, there was a question today as well. Could you be kind enough to explain to all of us how anicca, dukkha and anatta can be used to contemplate during the following most common situations that we lay people encounter on a daily basis? Number 1, whilst cooking meals or during other household chores. Whilst driving in the most busy roads, getting through the day on a normal working day with a demanding boss and deadlines. Although I might not have touched on those specific ones, we are talking about similar examples. Because I'll tell you what you do on all of these situations. You judge. It's here, see? A demanding boss. At your mother's funeral. At your mother's funeral. Did your boss not support you? To organize a funeral, to do whatever you had to do, give you some time off. At that time, he or she was not demanding. They're not always demanding. They're demanding when you don't want those demands. That's when they are demanding. You don't like them. When they ask you to do something, you don't like them. You don't ask to be liked. No, I'll try again. When they ask you to do something, you don't like to be asked to do. You judge them with what? A demanding boss. When they ask you to do something you like to be asked to do, that's not a demanding boss. That's a very understanding boss. It's very understanding. When you were looking for work and you submitted your application and they did the interview and they hired you, did you say, my demanding boss? You were very grateful that they hired you and they gave you that job. When you went to ask for an increment, and maybe for the 100th time, and then finally they said yes. That was a time where they were understanding. So where's the demanding boss? Don't judge, ladies and gentlemen, don't judge. Because every time you judge, you are the one who is judged. It's very important to get this because I don't know whether you remember this. From a few weeks ago, I shared this with you. You can never know of someone else's existence. You can never know someone else's existence. And there's a reason for that. We talked about this, but I'll remind you again. You have only 5 sense organs. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and your body. And then you have a mind. The person sat next to you feels that they're an individual, don't they? Well, we can only assume that they do. There's only one person about whom you can be sure about this. And who is that? Yourself. Yourself. You're the only person about whom you can be certain is an individual, that there's a self here. Do you recall that I said one of the greatest ironies of this self is that every individual in this room feels exactly the same self? I don't know if you remember this. Because same causes, same effect. The root of the sense of self is ignorance and attachment. So if ignorance and attachment is what is there in every mind, then the sense of self has to be identical in all minds. Are you with me? Does that make sense? I see some blank faces. I'll try again. If you have the same causes, what do you have? The same effect. If you want a different effect, what must you do? Change the causes. So same causes give you the same effect. We know that there is no such thing called a self. There's only the sense of self, right? Yeah? There's only a sense of self in each chitta, which arises due to a vipaka, rooted in ignorance and attachment. Rooted in ignorance and attachment, a sense of self is created. And remember, we talked about how the same thing happens in the following chitta, how the same thing happened in previous chittas, and each one is an individual sense of self. But the self is such a funny thing that when it occurs, it projects itself across time, and therefore it feels that it was the same self in the past and the same self in the future, whereas actually that is so wrong, because it's an individual creation each time. Do you remember all this? Okay, so the same thing happens in the mind neighboring to you. So the person sat next to you is going through the same thing. So if ignorance and attachment gives rise to the sense of self, then ignorance and attachment in the next mind gives rise to what? Same sense of self. In the mind just next to that, the same sense of self. So across all people in this room, it's the same sense of self. So much so that if we swapped your sense of selves, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Let's say you all had a switch on your forehead somewhere. I come up to you and switch it off. And now you are just like frozen. Okay? You can't think or anything. But what I do in the meantime is I take your ignorance and attachment. I can't take yourself because self has to be created. Can I take yourself? No, it does not exist for me to take. I take your ignorance and attachment and I swap it with someone else in the room at random. And then we flick the switches back on again. What would you be able to say has happened? Nothing. You won't be able to say that anything has happened because you would be indifferent to it. Because we have just swapped ignorance and attachment. Nothing identical, nothing unique about them. Do you have such thing called my ignorance and her ignorance and his ignorance and their ignorance and its ignorance? Is there such a distinction? Ignorance is ignorance. That's why we all listen to the same Dhamma from the same Buddha. And for all of us, ignorance and attachment dissipates and is eradicated. So the same doctrine has the same effect on everyone. Meaning that one doctrine can only do that to one type of ignorance and attachment. So it must be the same ignorance and attachment in all of us. Make sense? So then, the greatest irony of it all is, although we feel the same sense of self, we think that we are all different to one another. We think we are all different to one another. But it's the same sense of self in all of us. How did we get there? Why did I start talking about that? What? Yes, well, I was trying to explain to you. Yes. Why it's wrong to judge and one of the problems with passing judgment. Yes. So you can't be certain of the self in anybody else because you can't sense it. Yeah? You can only be certain of your own sense of self Because you don't have a sense organ or a faculty which is responsive to someone else's self. That's a lot of words. It's exhausting trying to explain it to you. I wonder how difficult it must be to understand. I'll try again. Through your eyes, you can see sight. Through your nose, you can smell smells. Taste for the tongue, sound for the ears, and touch for the body. Okay? These things you can get from the person sat next to you. How do you observe their sense of self, though? Do you have a faculty that gives you that stimulus? You can't. Therefore, you cannot be aware, or you cannot come to know of someone else's sense of self, or someone else's identity. Agreed? Okay. Then, when you make judgment about someone, when you pass judgment about someone, in your mind you think that this is not right. You think that this judgment you are passing is about that individual. So when you say that someone's bad, what about them is bad? Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, or the individual is bad? See, there you go. This is where you err. This is the fault. I'm trying to explain to you, hope you can understand what I'm saying. When you say that someone's bad, is it their sight that's bad? Sound, smell, taste, touch? No, what's bad? The individual is bad. You say the individual is bad. He is bad. When you say someone's good, he is good or she is good, then you say the individual is good or the individual is bad, right? But how can you sense the other person's individuality to pass such judgment? Huh? Where's the evidence? If you said his sound is bad, I get that. He smells bad, I get that. Yeah, I will leave it at that. He looks bad, I get that. When you say he is bad, come on. Come on, think about this. When you say he is bad, what about him did you experience or have as evidence to make that claim? Nothing. What about him did you experience? See, this man here, now they're just going to pass verdict. They're going to give a judgment, right? What can the judge experience from this individual? Sight, sound, smell, taste and touch if he's that way inclined. But let's assume he's not, right? All he can get is the things that come through the five senses. And things that he might have heard about him. Things that other people say he has done. Okay? When you make a judgment about someone, think about your friend, for instance. Think about your best friend for a second. Your best friend. Are they good or bad? That's an easy one, hopefully. Is your best friend good or bad? Come on, don't we have unanimous agreement on that? Good, excellent, right. So your friend is good, yeah? What have you experienced about that friend through your, through the faculties that you have? Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. You're not saying that my friend's sight is good, smell is good, taste is good, sound is good, this is good, that is good. What you're saying is, my friend is good. Meaning what you're saying is, they're good in their entirety. Their whole identity is good. The whole self is good. Again, okay, behaviors and all that, these are things you've seen, right? You've seen or you heard or whatever. I can understand if you said this, right? He did something like this and that was good. He helped an old woman cross the street and that action was good. I get that. Okay, the action was good. He kicked a dog. That was bad. Okay? He gave some money to the beggar. That was good. Okay? He smokes, and that's bad. I get that. But you go beyond that. You go beyond that and you say, he is good. And she is good. Or she is bad. What did you observe to make that claim? Now you're not talking about sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, or even behaviors or actions. Now you're actually making that judgment on their entire character, individuality, their person. That's who you're making this judgment on, the person. But how can you sense that person? It's not possible to sense another person because you have no faculty to perceive a person. So whenever you think you're perceiving someone, all you're perceiving is your own creation of the other person. That's why you have never loved another man or woman. So whenever you look at someone you think you love and say, I love you, it's a complete, what? People who have heard this, come on, say. It's a complete lie. I'll tell you why. You cannot love another person because you can't sense another person. How can you tell them that you love them if you can't even sense them? Because is it the sight you love? Then you can say, I love your sight. I love your smell. I love your taste. I love your sound. Right? Otherwise, there'll be a lot of editing to do in this sermon. That's why so I leave them the trouble of editing and just edit myself on the fly. If you said such things, I get it. Because you're talking about things that you can perceive through your five senses, and then you say, I love these things. But when you say, I love you, who is that you you're talking about? You can't sense that you in the other person because you have no faculty to sense it. Then that you are talking about is a you that you fabricate in your own mind. Get it? Thank you. That's why I say, that's why I make this bold claim. And I stand to my word. You have never loved anyone because you have never sensed anyone else in this whole world. Because you are incapable of sensing another existence. You are incapable of that, ladies and gentlemen. So whenever you say you love someone, what you're actually saying is, I have created me and I have created you in my mind, and that you I love. I have one more piece of evidence to prove this. See, all my arguments are based in fact, and they are very perfectly logical arguments, which is my weakness as much as it is my strength, as Guru Maharaj always tells me. This is the argument. That's why when they don't conform, now you know the rest of it. Now you know the rest of it. Yeah? When they don't conform to this other creation, this fabrication that you have in your own mind, you begin to be disappointed. You have never fallen out of love with that fabricated individual of the other person. You have always loved them. But the person on the outside, you say, does not conform to that. That's when you start to dislike them. When their actions don't agree with the person that you love. Not the person that you love, the creation that you love. So you have never loved, and there's something worse than that. You have never been loved. You are the unloved. Sorry to burst your bubbles, ladies and gentlemen. No one has ever loved you. No one has ever loved you. How does that make you feel? It's okay. See, now it's okay because you understand that people are not able to love me, then it's okay. If they were able to love me and then they didn't love me, now you know people are not able to love me, that's okay, it's okay. No one can love me, so it's fine that no one loves me. But in case that, because in the past you thought that people could love you, but they didn't. You just imagine I said no one loves you back before the Dhamma. That would have hurt you a lot. So anyway, why do I bring this story here? Is because you have never sensed another individual. You have never sensed another self. Now then, when you judge, you can never judge another. See, it's impossible. I don't know whether you understand the gravity and the profoundness of these words. I really hope you do. If you have the merits, then you will understand it in the same spirit and essence and gravity and the profoundness with which I try to impart this knowledge on you. I really hope you do. I hope this is more than just a bunch of words and this is actually making sense to you. I'm not patting myself on the back here, but I'm very impressed by the Dhamma. It is so profound and it's so true. There's no way you can pick any holes in this. It's impenetrable, ladies and gentlemen. The Dhamma is impenetrable. Of course, it has to be the truth then. Only a lie can be penetrable. Now this is impenetrable. No matter which problem you try to look at, which angle from which you approach it, they all conform, they all converge onto the same truths. So it has to be the truth. That's why I'm a lifelong Buddhist Ravaka. You can't shake me. Not because of a blind devotion towards the Buddha, no. It's because of an understanding of the Dhamma. That is why. I want you to be empowered, just as I feel empowered by the Dhamma. Once you have the truth, you are invincible. So you see, whenever you judge, you can't sense the other self, right? To pass that judgment to, or to make a judgment, to assess whether they are good or bad. Because if you can't sense the other self, how can you assess whether that self is good or bad? Isn't it? The only self you can perceive is your own self. So then whenever you decide whether that is good or bad, it's not the other self that you're making this judgment towards, it's your own. Once again, we come back to that timeless truth. Judge others and you shall be judged. In fact, we can go one step further and put another little word in there. Judge others and only you will be judged. You can't judge anyone else. You are incapable of judging anyone else. So the only true judge there is the judge of karma and vipaka. That is the only true judge. That is the only true judge. Karma and vipaka. Because karma is the action, vipaka is the consequence. That system, that law of karma and vipaka, that is the only true judge. You have never suffered for someone else's sins. And you have never earned the rewards of someone else's goodness, someone else's wholesome actions. Only you can reap what you have sown. That's why in this game it's every man and woman to himself or herself. And that is why the Dhamma is your only refuge. I can't be your refuge. I'm not your savior. Who is your savior? You are your own savior. Your Sangha is your savior, meaning your practice. Let me share with you a letter by someone who has become their own savior. Thero and Sarnai, Dharmishta Rajagiriyans. We hope you are all doing well and keep doing all the merits you have been practicing as always. Maybe you're wondering what happened to the 3 girls with specs who used to show up every Sunday. And we can think of 3 possibilities. Have they migrated? Or have they fallen sick? Or have they become anagarikas? And you guessed right. They have gone on to become anagarikas. Remember those days we talked about practicing the path full time and aspiring to be anagarikas. Guess what? We are living that dream now. Our days are filled with doing merit works, listening to sermons, meditating, discussing the doctrine, studying and learning new things that are useful to our spiritual practice. We do all these only with one purpose. We discuss the doctrine so that we can understand and realize the truth. We learn new languages so we can heal more hearts. We recite the stanzas so we can mend minds. We do everything with a purpose. We walk, we talk, we eat, we drink. We do all these things with the purpose of attaining Nibbāna. And that is our only purpose. My salvation and that of others. But you know there's no one or others to Nibbāna, as this is written in a 2D sense. Smiley face. When we are sick, we have 150 anagarikas looking after. When we are worried, we have our teachers by our side to solve things together, and the Mahasangha is always there to protect us. Can you believe one could be this meritorious? And all these have become a reality because of you. All those big and small meritorious deeds we did together laid the path for us to get here, and all that credit goes to all of you. So this is a letter of gratitude. You have all been merit magnets, and we hope you realize how fortunate you are. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you and your support. So much merits for everything you have done. We include you in our merit transfer at night too. Do you think your children do that? This is a side question. That just got me thinking. Do you think your children do a merit transfer to your name every night they go to sleep? Your relations, your brothers, your sisters? See, these are the anagarikas who lived with you, who came along to the sermons with you, who practiced with you, who did merits with you, who aspired with you, who strived with you, who walked amongst you. But today, they do a merit transfer every night before they go to sleep, because it is a practice that we all do at our monastery. Guru Handra wants us to do that. It is a must at our monastery. Before we go to sleep every night, we transfer merits to all those who have helped us to get where we are. See, you're in the hearts of these anagarikama for now and forever. And we hope to see you soon. We actually can think of 2 ways to make it work. Now here's a proposal. Either we visit you with a few other anagarikas, or you visit us. If you come to the monastery, you get to associate with all the anagarikas, the Swamin Wahanses, the Sila Shravakas, the Sila Shravikas, Sila Vesis, our 18 minus and 12 plus sons and daughters of their family too. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I know there are a lot of RRs cited Nayaka Thero. Righteous Rajagiriyans, yes. I know that there are a lot of RRs who wish to practice the path full time. I hope this gives them a little inspiration. So I hope it gives a little inspiration to take that step forward and give this a try. So here's the invitation to you all. As Kalyana Mitras who have been a part of the Dharmeshwar Rajagiriyan family, surrounded by the wonderful people that you are, I encourage you to try this. This is a once in a sansaric time opportunity that you shouldn't miss. Let us end with this. For you, listen to this. For you, tomorrow is a Monday, the first working day of the week. They have also learned to mock you now, haven't they? For us, including all the other residents at the monastery, it's another day in paradise. Swagatang vatame asi, mama buddhasya sampike. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. With metta, anagarikas, Pavani, Medhani, and Sugishwa. So they handed that letter over to me this morning. And they said I was not supposed to take it out until I sat down for the sermon. So there you have it. They were born among you. They were bred among you. They grew up among you. They were fed the Dhamma. They were sheltered by the Mahasangha among you. These are the true heroes, ladies and gentlemen. Heroes and heroines. Take inspiration from them. This is a call to you. It's a call to say, when my time was up, I acted. If your time is now up, act. I'm sure you'll all have fond memories of how you all worked together with them. Remember that the two sisters? It was not an easy struggle for them. Not an easy battle. There were many forces acting against them. These are all no one else is doing. All these forces that act against someone on their journey to liberation, to salvation, to prosperity, whatever, are not forces enforced by anyone else. These are all one's own doing. Like we always tell them, never have any grudge, animosity towards anyone who's trying to pull you back, be that parents, siblings, relations, whoever's. I always say, whenever you're going through life, make sure you check yourself in the mirror all the time. When you look in the mirror, ladies and gentlemen, if what you see is ugly, whose fault is that? When you look in the mirror, if what you see is ugly, whose fault is that? Yours. If what you see is pretty, who takes credit for that? Still you, right? Neither of these two things are the mirror's doing, is it? Likewise, when someone does something to you, when someone says something to you, when someone acts in a certain way towards you, remember these words. They are simply a mirror. And now I have explained to you why that is. You can't do bad to another person, because you can't sense another person to do bad to. All you are aware of is your own sense of self, your own existence. So evilness is born, lives, and dies here. Goodness is born, lives, and dies here. Doesn't go any beyond that. So this is your world. These are people who have understood those truths. And they have realized that the greatest war, the greatest battle there is is the battle that they wage to conquer themselves. You know, they were young girls in the prime of their lives, they had everything going for them. Educated, well-to-do. I mean, with qualifications like that and people of that caliber, wherever they go, it's not going to be difficult to find work or find even a suitable partner. These are not girls who are handicapped in any way for that matter, except for one. They were looking for the truth, the meaning of life, the purpose of existence. In that way, they were handicapped. And finally, they found it. In and amongst you, they found it. So now they have made it their life's purpose to instill that into themselves, to grow with that. And now, this is not just for themselves, now they're making a call. One of these days, I'll bring them here, so you can talk to them. A few of you have been coming and passing your regards, so I've been passing them back, and this must be a reply to that. Perhaps you might have forgotten that they were with you. Maybe. I know there are still those who have very fond memories, but because life takes over, right? Until I remind you about your dead mother, you weren't thinking about her, right? Exactly, because life happens. And if you can forget your mother and father, then you can forget anything. That's not your fault, because we can only think about one thing, and when life takes over and things happen, we have to focus ourselves on that, right? And then, after a while, you forget. There was an Anagarika who is now with us. I talked about him in the last sermon or the one before that. Right? And now these are some Anagarika Mahatmas. You may have forgotten them by now because life has moved on. But you are always in their thoughts. Every night before they go to sleep, they do a merit trance. So you are always in their thoughts. See, these are people who have not forgotten their roots. Gratitude is part of their ethos. It's part of what makes them Anagarikas. If they lose that, they're no longer Anagarikas. If we lose our gratitude to the Sariputta Thero, to Mahabhadrakachayana Therin Vahanse, if we lose our gratitude to our teachers, our parents, to those who have kicked the ball per se until we got to the goal, all of those, then we are no longer monks in our own right. We are not monks, we are not Shravakas, we are not Anagarikas or Anagarikas. If you've attended the ordination ceremonies at the monastery, remember the video that you get to see just before they come forward for ordination? What is the last thing they say? They give grace. Have you heard that? They say, from the day that we arrived here, you have all looked after us as mothers and fathers, sheltered us, fed us, protected us. You have been by our side. And on this day, when we leave our lay lives once and for all and go forth into robes, we take that gratitude with us. And we carry that forward. And we make a determination that just as we have seen the path and have begun to walk on that, we will continue to encourage you, those who were the reason, those who gave us the shoulder to stand on, to come this far, to walk with us. These are the most beautiful things to me in the Samuddhasasana. These are the most beautiful things. That's why I said, the Dhamma is the seed, but it only settles, it only takes root where the ground is fertile. For there to be fertile ground, there have to be these virtues, values, attitudes, and all that. That is why right at the beginning of this talk, I reminded you. If someone comes up to you and says something that bothers you, upsets you, annoys you, it's not your part to retaliate. Patience, determination, compassion, and to understand that they must not be judged. It's just a chitta that has been vexed, right? And a vexing chitta is not one that deserves your blame or your accusations. It's one that deserves your compassion. That's what a vexing chitta is. See, these are the makings of a fertile ground on which it will be easy for me to plant these seeds. Then I don't have to work hard. All I have to do is just come and just throw a bunch of seeds like that. Then a half an hour sermon will do. Just a half an hour sermon, that'll do. So, I need you to play your part. Realize that there are people who always think of you every day. They have not forgotten you. They are very thankful and very grateful that you paved the path. I remember when these Mahatmyas first arrived here, I remember when they were new to the audience. I remember, they were sat at the back somewhere initially, and then you encouraged them to come forward, as you always have been doing. I see that. I see the quiet encouragement that you always give to those people who you feel have got bit more of a mileage. I can see how you do it. And how you'll shelter them, look after them. They may come here because they've heard a sermon on YouTube, but they won't stay because of that. They'll stay here because of you. They may come here because of me. I'll take some of it. I'll take some credit for it, okay? Right? They'll come here because of me, okay, let's say. Let's assume that. But they won't stay here because of me. Because I'm not the ones who make them stay. So, the best way I can put this is, if I bring the analogy, we are like father and mother. A child might come in to the womb because of the father. But that's the father's job, that's it. It's then the mother who nurtures that fetus and looks after it and sacrifices blood and sweat and everything to make the child ready. And during that period of gestation, and as the child grows in the womb, until it's ready to pop out, that's the mother's job, right? So, perhaps people will come here because they see Swaminwahanse on YouTube or this book, that book, whatever books, but they won't stay here because of Swaminwahanse. They stay here because of the love, affection and the care that they get from this community. So this is, I think, well deserved. Well done. Well done. So I want to thank you for this. I have been able to read this letter, this testimony, this testimonial. I have been able to read this with no small amount of help and support from each and every one of you. So to all of you who have contributed to making great women, or to put greatness back into women, that's what we do here. We put greatness back into women. Women who otherwise would have simply slaved either either to a husband or to a child. That's what wives and mothers do. They slave themselves. Lifelong they slave themselves. Once to a husband and then to her children. And then later on, once their good life is gone, then they all run to the temple and they ensure that the walls of the Dhamma hall don't fall, don't collapse. That's what they do, right? On Poya days, the walls of the Dhamma hall have a tendency to collapse on those days. So what do all these old Acharyamas do? They sit by the walls and they support the walls from falling down. Isn't it? Yes. So when their good life has gone by, when they have become just a tissue paper, no, there's a better word for it, you know what that is? Not tissue paper. Yeah, you know the one, right? I don't need to say it. The one that you use and flush. Yes? So once good use has been taken from them and they're no longer of any value, of any worth, they're tossed away just like that. That is what is typical for most women. 99% of women in this world, that is what is typical for them. Especially in some cultures. Especially in some cultures. I don't need to name what those cultures are. But look at what we have all been able to do. See? This is freedom. This is freedom. This is fighting for women's rights. Every woman has the right to freedom. Freedom not from men. Freedom not the right to vote or the right to drive or the right to become the president of this country. Those are very temporary, very superficial things. Freedom from oneself is the greatest victory of all. And that is what you have been able to support with this mission. So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Because of all of you, we have 3 great warriors who may be women on the outside, but they're very much the same warriors that we are on the inside. Take inspiration from them. And let's see them through, all the way to Arahathood. This is half the journey. There's another half to go. Let's make Arahants out of them. What do you say? Huh? Let's make Arahants out of them. Let's make sure that they are not born again. So then we have a story, we have a legacy to share with the rest of the world. Ladies, gents who care about the ladies, then that includes all of you. Every man here is someone who cares about a woman. Every man has a woman in his life. At least a mother. Right? So you all care. That is what we are about to do. That's what we are trying to do here. Let's make arahants out of them, not housewives, not merely housewives. Any woman can become a housewife. Any woman can become a mother. Any woman can become a teacher or an engineer or a rocket scientist. Any woman can become an astronaut. But not every woman can become an arahant. Even men fail big time. Let's support that journey. So they will come here one day and you can talk to them. But take from them as much as you give back to them. I can see there are more sprouts, more budding sprouts in and amongst you. Nudge them forward. Nudge them forward. With the same love, affection and tender care that you nurtured them, nudge them forward. I will give the Dhamma. But I'm not here to give any more than that. I give the Dhamma. The rest of it, I expect you will take care of. That's why the sasana is the fourfold Sangha. Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasaka, Upasika. Together we make this mission possible. Right, now don't forget any of this. If you judge, you shall be judged, and I have explained to you the logic, rhyme and reason behind how that happens. Okay? Right, let's leave it there for today. We'll discuss more examples next week in response to that question. So we'll leave it here. I'll pick it up next week and we'll take a few more examples and talk about them. Okay, let's take a moment then, ladies and gentlemen, to transfer all the merits that we have acquired. By inviting the Swami Master to deliver the sermon as well as creating a conducive environment for all to come along and practice the Dhamma, let us transfer the merits that we have all acquired. So the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasikas all around the world who have since time immemorial protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha and passed it down to generations of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let us take a moment to transfer this merits to the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let us transfer these merits to my teacher Guru Swami Mahanse, as well as all the monks resident at the monastery and the anagarikas and anagarikas attached to the monastery. Let us take a moment to transfer these merits to those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, be that by transliterating these talks, sharing them out with others who are inviting others to join them. May they all rejoice in these merits. Let us transfer these merits To our devotees and friends of the monastery who, for the sake of merits to help them attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna, continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes all of you who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, alms, robes, and medicines, and pass on their know-how and continue to extend their well wishes. May they all rejoice in these merits, and by the power of these merits, may they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcoming obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to our mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, our friends, our acquaintances, our employees and our employees, our teachers, as well as anyone and everyone who have helped us, supported us and assisted us in any way, shape or form. May they all rejoice in these merits. And by the power of these merits, may they also be freed of any physical and mental ailments and overcoming obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to the devas and brahmas, spirits and demons, primarily the Sakadeva, as well as all the numerous gods and deities who have committed themselves to fulfill and preserve the sambuddhasana. Let us transfer our merits to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to our forefathers, our ancestors, those who have passed away in our name, reminding ourselves that it is in their blood, sweat and tears today we are able to enjoy the comforts of life and practice the path in peace and harmony. Let us transfer these merits to members of the armed forces as well as the police force who sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation, as well as those who lost their lives in the wars, be they friend or foe, and those who lost their lives in natural disasters and calamities such as tsunamis and earthquakes, landslides, fires, floods, pandemics and so on, reminding ourselves that in this infinitely long journey of samsara they will all have been mothers and fathers to us. And with an abundance of compassion, loving kindness, and a sense of gratitude towards all that they have done for us, let us transfer these merits to all of them. May, by the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful plains, they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may by the power and blessings of all the merits we have acquired throughout the day, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of arahants on this blessed land. And finally, may you and I and everyone who's helped make this program a success become a Rahatan Mahanse or an Arahat Teranin Mahanse in this very life itself and in the era of this Sambuddha Sasana itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. Members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginnen midetva, dvesha ginnen midetva, moha ginnen midetva, Nibbāna parama sukhayan Sukhitattara vetva, Nibbāna parama sukhayan, Sukhitattara vetva, Mamada siyalu loka, siyalu satvayo, Nibbāna parama sukhayan, Sukhitattara vetva, Nibbāna parama sukhayan, Sukhitattara vetva, Nibbāna parama sukhayan, Sukhitattara vetva. Raga gini niveva, dvesha gini niveva, moha gini niveva, nivan sapa labeva, nivan sapa labeva, nivan sapa labeva. Tunduange suvisi ananta mahaguna velen, silu loka silu satyoma, Nibbāna parama sukhayan, Sukhitattara vetva. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.